Another thing I should have mentioned at the top, and this is just, this is part of what the Chiefs do. It is a triumph of coaching and player development. Xavier Worthy's playing really well right now.
Yeah.
Xavier Worthy has 11 receptions in a couple of postseason games in his rookie year, and I don't think any other Chiefs wide receiver has more than 3. Like, Xavier Worthy is the top dog all of a sudden in this receiving core, and you think of the names that they've actually brought back. That they add DeAndre Hopkins in season. They finally get Hollywood Brown back, and this is kind of the Xavier Worthy show, and he was great. We saw him win in a contested situation. Got the catch in a contested situation, a simultaneous possession deal, and he's just been sensational on some of the shorter stuff. Like, he is. They're building this passing game around Xavier Worthy and to, like, in a secondary manner, Travis Kelce, and it is working. And that is no small achievement, because it has not always been an easy watch with Xavier Worthy this year.
Oh no, I mean, I think he played outright poorly to start the year and was sort of, I think I've said this before, he was like the meme of the negative version of what you'd think about Xavier Worthy would be coming to the NFL, because of, he weighs 165 pounds or whatever, couldn't beat man coverage, didn't win contested. He went down so easily in the open field. But credit to this organization, which, like, obviously you have a plan when you take a guy like this. I always come back to the taking Rashee Rice last year, and I asked him this at the Super Bowl, like, when was the plan, like, sort of in place, that you were going to move from an outside perimeter receiver, like mostly running goes and curls, to being like a big slot receiver for this team? And he's like, oh, that was expressed as soon as I was drafted, that I was going to move into that position, which I thought was so. I mean, just, it's so inspired by Andy Reid and that coaching staff to do that. And I think with Worthy, it took a little bit more time to kind of find the right buttons to push with him, but they've absolutely found it now. I mean, you go and look at here, he's obviously the leading receiver here, 85 yards. He has minus 5.6 air yards per target in this game here. And obviously that's with him getting that long, deep reception. So they have found ways, and some of it's a little gadgety, some of it's a little bit Mickey Mouse stuff, but they're finding ways to use and express his speed so much better than they were at the beginning of the year. I do think having Hopkins and having Hollywood Brown back, even if those guys aren't, big time target earners or anything like that, just having those guys out there to do the quote real receiver stuff, you're moving Xavier Worthy around while you're getting ways where he's in, one-on-one coverage with DeMar Hamlin, and some of the slow safeties that the Bills employ back there. Yeah, that's what you want to do with a guy like Worthy. So they found the right ways to use him, which gives me confidence for what he could do in the postseason, although it's going to be a much different secondary matchup there in the Super Bowl, but obviously even into next year as well.
Yeah, he's actually probably one of the guys, and granted, the Chiefs receiving core looks a little bit different next season, but he's probably one of these guys that has gained the most in terms of fantasy appeal, fantasy value throughout the postseason, because he has just absolutely stepped up as the key member of that team's receiving core, like by orders of magnitude at this point. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like against Philly, because as you mentioned, that is a very different matchup, and that is a very good secondary. Although Xavier Worthy presents you with a speed problem that is unsolvable for most defenses. Also, a little thing that he's picked up at some point. He did it a few times against the Bills. He now does the Tyreek Hill thing, where quite often the first step he takes after a catch is backward toward his quarterback, just to like create a little space maybe and give his speed an edge. And it's always been super effective for Tyreek. It's not a thing that you would ever coach anybody to do unless they have like 4.1 or 4.2 speed. But it is, maybe it's a sign that Worthy is getting a little bit more comfortable with the pace of the game and knowing what he can get away with and what he can't.
That was some of the issues with the after catch stuff early. Is like, he's never going to be a tackle breaker, but once he's got this spacing down and sort of the angles of everything, you see him on these like mesh concepts that, that was the Rashee Rice play. Now it's a very different way of being an after catch threat there, because Rice is more of the tackle breaker. He's more of that hammerhead from the slot. Whereas Worthy, he's just running away from guys. Poor Kaiir Elam, who had to play because Christian Benford goes down like right away. And I really was stunned in just how much that Tony Romo specifically and the CBS broadcast in general were going ham on Kyer Elam, just like keep picking on Elam or whatever, which Nate made the point that is like, that's so former quarterback of Tony Romo, because like when a quarterback sees the backup corner come in the game, we're like, all right, we're testing that guy. And Elam didn't do anything to discourage the testing. But I mean, at times there were like, Elam wasn't even in the same zip code as Xavier Worthy on some of those crossing routes.
Yeah, totally unfair, but I'm glad you pointed out the way the broadcast treated it, because I really started to feel bad for the guy, right? Like it was getting so highlighted by the broadcast team, and preemptively before anything had even happened. I'm sure that's right. I'm sure Tice is right. It's the quarterback instinct to see any sort of backup corner coming into the game, replacing somebody who was a totally competent player. That was a weak point, and they certainly kept hitting on it.